Okay.
Hard stop at red.
Can you start that red with about 5 seconds left, kind of, so that you have a small? That's the one thing I thought is you should have had a. They really should have had
A wrap it up red?
Yeah, wrap it up with yellow one. Okay. It's whatever it is.
We might get. Let's get the audience attention here. Can we quiet the room, please? Quiet the room. Quiet the room.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bobby Dutcher, the chair of the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee. This evening, we're putting on this forum tonight. Can you hear me now? How's that? Getting better? Okay. Okay, tonight's forum is sponsored by the Lake County Chamber of Commerce with a partnership with the Lake County Record B. Ariel Carmona has been a member of our committee since we first started this idea. He's been a big help in coming up with the questions and help setting this up and advertising it. Other members of our committee that are helping here tonight, Trina Pauley, they're in the back, Mark Lips. Mark Lips is gathering questions here too. And Monica Rosenthal will be our timer. So we emailed the questions out, 6 questions out ahead of time for the candidates to get the program started this evening. After that, all the questions will be kind of spontaneous from the audience. And I've been receiving these for a couple weeks. So we've got probably 30 questions so far. But if anybody out there has any, be sure to give them to us, and they'll be asked tonight. Kevin Ingram, the city manager for Lakeport, is going to be our moderator this evening. There's Kevin. And he will kind of describe the process and take it from here. Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Bobby. It's a pleasure to take part in this exciting event this evening. Welcome, candidates, Ms. Peiska, Mr. Boone. A quick overview for you this evening of how these proceedings are going to run. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll go through a listing of prepared questions that they've received in advance. They'll have a 1-minute response, and then after that we'll move to some of the audience questions where they'll also have a 1-minute response as well. After that, before we wrap up the evening, each candidate will also be permitted 2 minutes for a closing statement. So this evening's question and response order was determined earlier, and we'll rotate back and forth through this evening through those questions. And as Bobby already described, we have Monica Rosenthal here this evening, who will be our illustrious timekeeper, holding up a yellow sheet of paper when there's about 30 seconds left, and then the red when your time has expired. Okay, I think you've heard all that you want to hear from me, so let's go ahead and get to what we came here to this evening. So per that determined order drawn this earlier today, Mr. Boone, you have the floor for your opening statement for 2 minutes.
Thank you for the chamber. Can you guys hear me? Everybody good here? Nope. Hold on. Let's find me. Testing. Testing. We got nothing yet.
Go ahead, keep talking.
Do we have a?
Yeah, you're on.
There we are. Are we there?
Yeah.
Are we there yet? No. Still waiting. Well, you guys might wonder why I gathered you here this evening.
Wait.
Okay, can you hear me yet? Are we on? Are we on? Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
All right, everybody good? Somebody in the back can hear me? Borgo, can you hear me? Okay, well, you're old.
This one's
All right,
There you go. Just
Nothing?
lift the mic up a little closer.
a little bit closer.
Yeah,
Still,
there you
we're.
go. There you go. Right
Are
there.
we that?
Yeah.
We're gonna be like up on this thing. Okay. Are we all good now?
Yeah.
All right, Monica, you ready? All right, thank you for the chamber for putting this thing on tonight. Thank you that all of you that came out and braved the weather and the Lake County roads. That's a big portion of getting here. My name is Boone Bridges, and I'm running for District 5 Supervisor to represent Lake County and the needs that you guys have. I've been a Lake County resident my entire life. My grandfather's grandparents owned a store in Clear Lake. My grandfather graduated from Lower Lake High in the 40s. My dad was born here. I graduated from Kelseyville High School in 1998, right around here. And during that length of time, I got a chance to marry my childhood sweetheart, Janelle Bennett, now Bridges. Her parents were longtime residents also, and we've been married 23 years. And we have 6 children. My oldest is 19 and my youngest is 15 months. And that gives me a unique perspective on kids and the things that they're looking for in a community like this. I'm running to make Lake County a better place for our kids, for my kids, and for your kids. One of the things that absolutely breaks my heart is when I talk to people and their kids have moved out of state, out of county, and their grandkids are out of state and out of county. And they only get to see them once or twice a year. So my goal is to create a place in Lake County that is such a great place to live that nobody wants to leave, that our kids want to stay here, that our grandkids want to stay here. And I'm committed to making that my #1 priority. I love that I live across the street from my parents. I want that for my kids. I want that for your kids and for your people that you love, that they don't have to go somewhere else. And the way we do that is by economic development within our county and addressing those issues through transparency and accountability. Thank you very much.
Is this microphone working now? Okay. Well, I also want to thank the Chamber and the Record B and everybody that's come out tonight and our timekeepers. It's wonderful that we get to have these events where the community can interact with the candidates, and I always look forward to them. My name is Jessica Paiska, and I am the current District 5 Supervisor. I also served as the board chair last year. I grew up in Lake County. I was born at the old Lakeside Hospital, and I grew up in Cobb. After graduating from UC Santa Cruz, I moved to San Francisco, and I worked in commercial real estate for many years before my husband and I decided to come back home and start our family. In 2015, the Valley Fire destroyed our home and our community, and immediately I got to work doing grassroots organization, bringing people together to determine how we were going to recover, rebuild, and learn to live with wildfire. In 2020, I was elected to the board, and the last 3 years have been incredible. We've had some challenges. COVID, definitely a challenge, but out of that came opportunities like the American Rescue Plan Act funding, $12 million that's come into our county that we have been investing into our communities to improve the lives of everybody that lives here. We allocated new positions for an economic development deputy CAO and a housing CAO. Those two have been busy putting together our plans. I continue to focus on economic vitality, a high standard of disaster preparedness and recovery, and healthy and safe communities.
Thank you, candidates. We'll now move to the prepared question portion of this. The Government Affairs Committee has provided the candidates in advance of this meeting with 6 questions, and we'll rotate back and forth. So starting on question number 1, we'll go to Ms. Paiska. What qualifications or experience do you have that has prepared you to understand, evaluate, and adjust a multi-million-dollar county budget?
So after college, when I worked in commercial real estate, I worked at a small firm where we bought and sold properties and managed a portfolio of about $30 million. And that was where I really learned how to budget and build performance for investors. Preparing for this role, I spent 2 years going to every meeting I could and sat on in many budgeting hearings. And now I have 3 full years under my belt. One of the first things that we did when I came on was with my colleague, we looked at the investment interest interest that our portfolio earns, and we were earning about $90,000 a quarter. By hiring an asset manager and bringing on that consultant, we were able to grow that funding each quarter. Till now, we have almost 3.7 million in the last quarter. We expect that to continue to grow over the next 2 years before it stabilizes.
Well, for the last several years, I've been managing partner in several multi-million-dollar housing complexes and apartment complexes. And one of the things that we do with that is we look at budgets, we look at the management fee, the management structure, we make sure that there is significant capital funds, that there is enough in reserves, and that everything has to go through that. At the end of the day, it needs to make money, so we are always looking to cut costs. 25 years in building, every house is a budget. You have to go through it and look from start to finish and count the cost to do it. But I think the thing that I will bring to the county budget that's different from anything else is my private financial experience, which is to live debt-free. Spend less money than you make, and delayed gratification will get you a lot of stuff. One of the things you have to do is you have to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the best. There's a lot of great ideas out there, but you have to make hard decisions and cut where you need to.
Thank you. Question number 2 here, we'll start with Mr. Boone. If you can please share an example of a visionary idea or concept you conceived, developed, or put into action during your professional career.
One of my favorite things that I've ever done is create homes. So you drive by, you see an empty lot full of brush, and you envision, here's going to be a house. You're going to start from start to finish. I've done that for 20 years. Go in, clear the brush, build the house, create the whole thing. That's a vision. But my favorite one, as I thought about this question, was the Epic Midnight Madness that we put on for the kids. We did that about 12 years ago. My aunt and I sat down. We had the concept of, hey, kids need something to do on New Year's Eve. And so we started at Grace Church with an idea, and we implemented that idea. We had about 120 kids the first time. The second time we had about 240, then 340. Then we moved to the bowling alley. We had about 500 kids. And we finally ended at the fairgrounds. We had over 750 kids for an all-nighter. And I was in charge of that from start to finish, every aspect. I think that was one of my favorite visionary ideas that I ever had. And I would love to see us bring that back eventually. Dun, dun, dun.
I'm more than happy to ask the same question. You want?
That's fine.
Yeah.
So the Governor's Office of Planning and Research has 5 pilot programs across the state for biomass utilization strategy development. And I've been working on this for 2 years. Through a lot of persistence, was able to get Lake County to be the 6th pilot. We just got this news, as Kevin knows, the last couple months. So we have a lot of fire-killed trees around. We have tree mortality due to beetle. We have forest health projects. We have fuels projects. And we have no disposal strategy for all of these fuels. Biomass is the woody waste that comes from trees, dead trees, and plant material. And it's actually a renewable resource. It can be used for bioenergy, biofuel, biochar, which is for fertilizers, and can be used for filtration, like cleaning our lake. This is going to be, we're going to be inviting businesses in and building an industry here, and it's all going to be funded through the Governor's Office of Planning and Research.
Question number 3, and we'll start with Ms. Peiska. Homelessness in Lake County is on the rise. How would you address this situation?
This was the #1 issue for our Association of Counties this year, and we worked really closely with the state and other counties. But when we look at homelessness, we know that there's a lot of different reasons that people experience homelessness. There's substance use, misuse, there's mental health issues, lack of affordable housing, financial hard times, and these are our veterans, our seniors, and our children. And it comes down to more housing and more services. We have our housing plan that we just unveiled yesterday. It's going to bring a lot more available housing. We've got the shelter, which is short-term. We've got interim housing. We have many more grants lined up to bring more of those projects in. And the state is funding and reimbursing more services through behavioral health. So those services are expanding, and we have the opioid settlements, millions and millions of dollars coming in every year for almost the next 2 decades. And we're developing that plan to help our community.
Let's look at homelessness with 3 basic problems. You have substance abuse, you have mental illness, and you have displaced housing because they couldn't afford it. So the number one thing the county needs to do is reduce the cost of housing. Get out of its way so that people can go back to work and build again. The burdensome fees and structure and the time and the cost is causing a lot of that. That we can, by building homes at every level, we will address the housing problem. The second one we're going to go with is with substance abuse. Let's not reinvent the wheel. There is great places out there, private and religious organizations that are working with these people right now. The county should invest in those places. We should promote them, and we should make it as easy as possible for every private organization, charitable organization that's working with those people to do that. And third, the mental health issue is only going to be addressed by forced treatment, which nobody wants to talk about. But Brad in Lakeport specifically is already doing a good job of that, and we're going to follow that plan that he has.
Mr. Boone, we'll start with you here on question number 4. The allocation of water resources is an issue within any community. What do you feel is the most important water issue in Lake County, and how will you improve it?
Tough question. Let's go with 2 important issues. One of them is water allocation for agriculture. Agriculture in Lake County accounts for around $340 million worth of industry. So our ag industry absolutely has to have the water that they need. They need to be able to pump it, they need to be able to store it, and they need to be able to access their riparian rights. Ag needs water. In case you missed that, the agriculture industry needs its water so that it can continue to support itself. The other thing that has happened is Lake Pillsbury is probably going away. And the board has absolutely fallen down on this one. They have not been nearly dogmatic enough or aggressive enough with going after the state to make sure that that lake stays there. That's going to create a ripple effect all the way down. It's going to be a major environmental disaster, and we're going to lose that beautiful spot up there. And we absolutely need to make sure that we go after that. Might be too late, but we'll do what we can at this point.
So we know with climate change that in Lake County, California, and all across the West, water is going to be the #1 issue. And although we're not in a drought right now, our drought management preparation continues. It's going to be incorporated in our general plan. Water quality is always an issue for our lake. That's why we're committed to continuing with the Middle Creek project. We just acquired more property for that yesterday, and we are continuing to support the Blue Ribbon Committee projects. But you're right. Lake Pillsbury is the fight of our lifetime, and you may not see it, but we are working very hard to make sure that that lake doesn't go away. There's a lot that happens that the public doesn't see, but we just released a 5-page letter detailing our issues with the whole project and the decommissioning of Scotts Dam. And while we're having that fight, we also have to be prepared with contingency plans to make sure that we're holding PG&E responsible so that we're not left with a catastrophic mess.
Ms. Peiska, this one's to you to start. What do you feel are the top 3 economic engines of our local economy, and what would you do to help them?
The first one is tourism and recreation. The issue there is we don't have enough hotel rooms. We incorporated this in our economic development plan, and we have staff right now out there trying to figure out how we bring more investors and developers into the county to increase the hotel rooms. Agriculture, wine, grapes, walnuts, pears, and cannabis have to be at the table. They're going to be critical when we update our agriculture element. They need to be in advisory positions as we have placed them, so their input is heard and incorporated. Our staff We have 850 employees in the county, and we can go up to over 1,000. We also have over 2,000 in-home health service workers who receive local benefit. When all of those staff have healthy salaries and benefits, we all thrive. Those are the people that live here and spend here and power our economy.
Tourism, agriculture, and small business, including healthcare providers. That's our three major thrusts. Ag needs water. Ag needs the permitting process to be simple and defined. We need to make sure that we don't create onerous restrictions that create too much difficulty to put in new vineyards, new orchards, and all those type of things that need to happen to keep that going. Secondly, we have tourism. I think Kelseyville is the model for tourism. Everything that downtown Kelseyville puts on gets the best reviews, right? The Pear Festival, the dances, the parade. The county should look at Kelseyville and go, what are you guys doing and how are you doing it? How are you promoting so well? Let's copy that and make that the number one destination, the place that we are going to follow up with. And lastly, you have to unleash business. We absolutely need to go out and headhunt new companies to bring in new developments and allow them to do that. Other states are doing it, other counties are doing it. We need to reduce fees and taxes on them.
This last one in our prepared segment, near and dear to my heart as a recovering land use planner, but what are your thoughts about the general plan and area plans within your district? And Mr. Boone, we're going to start with you.
I think the area plan is happening, right? We have right now on the table, Maria Turner is heading a new area plan and general plan for us that's going to take the next 3 years to do. First of all, we need to make sure that our community is involved in this thing. I spent a lot of time in the last couple of days looking at the plan. We have some great plans already in place that haven't been updated in a lot of years, but the problem is when you read the plan, we're not obviously reading the plan. Under housing, one of the top 4 priorities is keep the cost of housing down. Well, we failed at that. In the Cobb plan, in 1988, I think was when that was done, they had a great segment on there on the danger of wildfire. Apparently, we forgot to read the plan. So in the planning process, I want to make sure that we do not let it get so huge that nobody actually reads it. The Constitution of the United States is 7,500 and some odd words. We need to make sure that our plan has Bill of Rights for each of the segments that's going forward so that every single person knows what the plan is and they can adhere to it.
I think we're calling it Lake County 2050. This has been a priority of the board since I got on. It was the priority of boards before, but this board is taking action for the first time. We're investing our ARPA funds into securing the best consultant in the state to take this 3-year project. These are our guiding documents. The area plans are about how the community sees themselves growing. This is why we need all of your input. We need you participating. And the area plan, it contains many elements, including our safety element and all of these documents that need to be updated to carry us forward. Cobb is 1989, Kelseyville 1995, the Riviera is 2007. These are grossly out of date, and this is the time, and we're taking that action to finally update them.
Thank you, candidates. That does conclude our prepared questions section of this evening's forum. I have a number of questions here from the audience. Same rules that applied in the last segment. You'll have 1 minute each for your responses, and we'll continue to go back and forth here in this order. So this first question, we'll start with Ms. Peiska. Can you please describe your understanding of the duties, responsibilities, and time requirements of a Lake County supervisor?
So the first duty is making sure that you are there on Tuesday and prepared. And that takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of research that goes into that. I spend a lot of weekends doing that research, so I'm ready on Monday after the agenda's been posted to reach out to staff. Tuesday we're there. I spend the rest of my time out at community meetings. I am at the KBA meetings, the Cabaret Council meetings. I'm interacting with the Canocti Fire Safe Council. I'm everywhere that I need to be interacting with my constituents. The limitations are is one board member cannot direct staff. I can interact with our directors, they're board appointed, but not staff. So when we work as a body, the board works together. It's important that we have good relationships with each of the members so that we can really move our agendas forward. Time commitment, this is a lifestyle for me. I work all the time.
As I understand it, the job of the board is to oversee staff, direct, and watch that. There's 4 elected officials in the 28 departments that aren't under the Board of Supervisors' direct control. I think the thing that needs to happen is you need to be involved directly with the people. So what would that look like for me? That would look like spending a day at the animal control to find out what they're doing on a daily basis, what they need, how it's happening. Ride-alongs with the sheriff's department so you see what the actual deputies are dealing with. Ride-alongs with the road department so you see the things that they're dealing with. Those are the type of things that will bring solutions that come from the very bottom and not just from the top down. And usually the best solutions is the quiet guy in the back corner that's been there for 25 years. He knows how to fix the problem. So you got to find those people, earn their trust, and then bring the solutions forward that way.
We'll start with you, Mr. Boone, on this one. If elected, will you be a full-time supervisor, or do you intend to keep your current job or business?
I do not want to be a full-time supervisor. It's a full-time job. I have a wife and 6 kids, and if I spend 40 hours a week doing the supervisor job, that'll leave me 20 hours a week to work on what I normally do, because I don't have enough going on in my life as it is. Here's the thing. Here's why I don't want to lose my job. Not because I need the income or because that's there. I don't want to lose my connection to reality. What happens is, I've seen it before where people get involved in the government and they live in that world and they miss being connected with people. Business is a great way to be connected to people. And so at this point, I'm able to set my own schedule and do my own work when I want to. I want to be able to continue to do that because I want to stay connected to the industry that I'm in of building and construction and real estate. I don't want to lose that connection, and I think our supervisors in the past have lost that.
So as everyone knows, the board received a salary increase based on 60% of the other electeds because of the salary increases that we gave. With that increase came the requirement that this is a full-time job. And you are very busy with committee assignments. I have many, many, many. You have to reach out to our state and federal electeds. You have advocacy work. You still have to show up for those community meetings. And you need to be available nights and weekends whenever you are needed. I give this job my all, as most of you know. I am out all the time, and I could not do that without my family. I have so much gratitude for my family for supporting me and allowing me to do this job. This is not a job of one person. This is a family's job, and they have stepped up to support me and do this with me.
Back to you, Ms. Pyska, first here. What knowledge, training, experience, or ideas do you have to share that will protect Lake County from natural disasters?
I only get 1 minute. So this has been my life's work since 2015. I never want to see this. I never want to see the devastation happen ever again in our communities. So I started that work with the Cabaret Council. I decided to run for supervisor so I could continue that work throughout District 5 and the county. I support the Fire Safe Council in Canocti, the Canocti Fire Safe Council. We've been hard at work at the Soda Bay evacuation plan, which was grant funded. I spend most of my time writing grants for climate action projects and fuel break projects, bringing collaboration with all of our stakeholders. Those are the people that actually do the work. The community, they identify the projects. Then I look for funding so that they can be implemented. And the role here in government is fairly limited because we only have the responsibility of county-owned property.
Will you read that one again, please?
Yeah, absolutely. What knowledge, training, experience, or ideas do you have to share that will protect Lake County from natural disasters?
Well, I think we're probably all focused on the main natural disaster, which is fire. And so let's focus on that. As a large landowner in Lake County, over the last 15 years, it's been my responsibility to protect my property because I know that the fire department is stretched too thin. So what does that look like? Get a dozer, actually get out there on the dozer and clear your own fire breaks and make sure that you maintain your property. Cut your own trees down. I have a sawmill, so I mill up my own lumber, reuse that, recycle it, put it into something new. I will bring those expertise and that experience of actually how to get things done, understanding the way that the land works. I'll bring that to bear on this, and then, of course, partnering with the fire departments and finding good people. In a multitude of counselors, there is safety, and Jim Comiskey has really given me a lot of good advice on that. That's what I'll do, is find the right people and implement the right programs.
Read it again.
I got that.
Oh, did you get the one? Okay, so we'll move on to the next one here. We're sticking on the theme here of natural disasters. So the next one here, Jessica, is up to you first. What should be done to address fire fuel loading along our scenic corridors?
Jessica, I don't think you're up, right? Didn't you go first on that?
I did, yeah.
Okay, sorry, can you say it again? Because I was thinking that's out of order.
Wait, okay, my apologies there. So what should be done to address fire fuel loading along our scenic corridors?
You absolutely have to reduce the load. If you look specifically on Bottle Rock Road, because that's where I live, I drive up and down it. A couple of years ago, they brought in some hand crews to work on the lower portion of Bottle Rock. And it looked absolutely amazing for about a year and a half, 2 years. But when you leave the root system in there, now we have higher brush than we had before. So, nobody likes to talk about it because it disturbs the ground more. You actually have to remove not just the surface fuel, but the root system, which creates more environmental impact, but you have to figure out a way to then masticate that and continue and have a multi-year program so that you don't come through, make something look good for 1 or 2 years, but have a long-term program of how you're going to keep the weeds down over more than a short period of time. And so working with fire officials and the county specifically to make sure that we are on a rotation of keeping those problems down over a long period of time. Oh, sorry.
So this is called shaded fuel breaks, and shaded fuel breaks are where you eliminate everything with the diameter below 6 inches, and you limb all of the trees up, and you get rid of all those ladder fuels. But sometimes that is a really big job in the beginning. You need to have hand crews come in and do that work initially. And then you can have a maintenance plan, and you can do that with prescribed burning. We're seeing that a lot right now. The state used to be really opposed to prescribed burning. Now they've flipped the script on that. We also have TERRA, the Tribal Ecological Restoration Alliance, doing cultural burning, but you've got to eliminate that really big overgrowth first, and then you get into maintenance mode with burning and mastication and seasonal maintenance.
Okay, so Jessica, back to you here. What can the county do to address the issue of high fire insurance rates and support non-insured property owners?
I could tell from the voices in the audience, this is a big issue. This is affecting all of us. It's out of control. The one thing that the county can do, because ultimately this is going to be solved at the state level with the legislature, the governor, the insurance commissioner, and the industry. The county needs to make sure that our voices are heard. Last year, 2 times, I invited the Department of Insurance to present to the Board of Supervisors to let us know what their plans are. We didn't agree with their plans, but more importantly, they were there to hear from our residents so they know exactly what's happening on the ground. There's a clear disconnect between what's happening in Sacramento and rural counties, and it's our job to make sure they know exactly what's happening here and how it's impacting our communities. We also stay in close contact with our elected officials. Both Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry and I are in close contact on this issue.
It's a state issue, and the only thing the county can do is yell at the state and continue to yell at them, and then encourage the residents to continue to yell at them. And when I say yell, that's call, and complain. The only way that's going to change is a squeaky wheel. What can we do then besides that? Because that's it. The biggest thing within the county would be promote and work on as much prescribed burning as possible so that we actually mitigate fire danger for ourselves. That probably won't actually lower the insurance cost, but your house probably won't burn down. Burn it, burn it, burn it. For years and years, they used to do that a lot. Now, she said the state made a decision that that was a bad thing. It turns out they were wrong, and they flipped the switch. They were wrong. Burning is important. Logging is important. Your fire protection is your deal. Clean the stuff around your house. Make sure that you have 6 feet clean. Make sure your gutters are clean. Do those things, and your house probably won't burn down.
Mr. Boone, we'll start with you on this next question here. What steps will you take to improve the economy of Lake County?
Ooh, this is a good one here. I absolutely think that the government permitting process is burdensome in every way. Housing costs from 2009 to 2024 now, it used to be that the county said that their percentage of the fees on a house was about 3.5% to 4.5% of the value of the house was eaten up in county fees. We're now somewhere around 11 to 12%. That's a big problem. So we absolutely have to make sure that the process is easy, convenient, and less expensive to do that. And then secondly, I would love to find a headhunting company to go out and encourage some sort of widget factory to move itself into Lake County and make widgets here. We can roll out the red carpet for them. We can make building easy. We can reduce fees for them. We can do all the things that other counties and states and cities are doing to encourage factories or manufacturing or some sort of call center to come in.
What we've done with our ARPA investment is bring on staff that specialize in this. So we have our economic development deputy who has developed an economic development strategy. Part of that strategy includes outreach to industry and a broadband master plan. We can't grow our industry and our businesses without broadband for everybody. The other investment we made was the housing deputy, and yesterday she unveiled our housing plan. And part of that plan is a pro-housing designation, which reduces the cost of building homes and streamlines the process. It looks at, and we analyze all of our assets and make goals, see where we need to grow. It's also going to give us the ability to, we have a housing trust for $2 million. We're going to grow that, but we can leverage those funds and get grants and tax incentives to really develop those housing projects, because that's really where we need to grow.
This next question goes back to kind of one of the ones that you guys already answered in your prepared segment on the issue of homelessness, but kind of focus more on a specific population. What will you do to address homeless population, many who happen to be U.S. veterans? And Ms. Peiska, I believe you're up first.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we do have a lot of veterans experiencing homelessness. We have services available for them, but we need to continue with our outreach. Lake County has a very high proportional rate of veterans living here, and we have to care for them and make sure that they are getting everything that they deserve for the services and sacrifices that they made for our country. We have an outreach van that we funded through, I think it was CARES Act funding, so that we can go out and reach people where they are and get them those services they need. We also know that some of this population experiences issues with substance misuse, and we are using those opioid settlements to come up with a plan that we can really support our community, everyone in our community, to make sure that so that they're being cared for. And then, of course, the housing plan that I just talked about is going to increase the housing stock for all sectors.
When the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I'm going to harp on it again. Housing costs in all sectors is too expensive. The burden of housing is causing this problem. It's not just low-income housing or ultra-low-income housing. It's not high-density stuff. In everything, if people are building homes, people move, and it allows for more people to come in. I know I have a lot of rentals around. When I put anything up for rent within hours, I have so many people looking for places, and the cost is too much. The cost to do business is too much. The cost to do that, we need to be able to replenish those and revitalize homes. We need to encourage local residents to invest in building rentals for local residents. That way, we get what we call golden handcuffs. If you're a local resident and you're building a rental property here and renting it, you're less likely to move out when you retire.
You both have touched on the subject of Lake Pillsbury, but we'll give you another minute here on this question. Time is running out to save Lake Pillsbury. Any thoughts on how this might be accomplished? Mr. Boone, I believe you're up first.
This is such a tough issue, and it's so sad to think that we will probably end up losing it. The board has done some things to it. She addressed those earlier. The problem is, at this point, it's almost out of our hands, and it might be out of our hands. And I don't know if there is a solution to that, but water resources and that district and those people are who we absolutely need to be talking to. We need to make sure that as a community, it's far away from us, but we all enjoy the benefits. As a community, we are giving our input and letting our state representatives know that we're not happy with this. It's going to reduce a good portion of the tax bases. If you own property up there, you're going to be extremely upset about the lake going away. And continuing the fight from the board level with letters to the state, squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's where we need to be.
There's a lot happening here right now. There's a lot of advocacy happening at the state and federal level. The issue is the decommissioning of the dam and how FERC will allow that or not allow that. And the arguments that we are building show that there is no way that PG&E can ever restore ecologically that area and provide and keep us whole for the lost resources and revenue. So it's our job to keep making that argument and getting to all of the places and having all of the conversations. And there are so many. And the two supervisors that are out there doing that, Supervisors Crandall and Sabatier, are committed to doing that work. Because of the Brown Act, the two of them are tasked with that. But as a board, we continue to push and fight and show that it is never going to be cost effective to remove that dam.
Thank you. Next question here, and we'll start with you, Ms. Pyska. As supervisor, what will you do to help find and retain quality candidates for county jobs?
Our vacancy rate today is 20%. We have some departments that have much higher vacancies. Those are really difficult to fill jobs. Law enforcement is one of those. We work really closely with the sheriff to come up with creative ways to fill those. We have really significant hiring incentives, not as significant as other areas in the Bay Area. So really what we've got to do and what we are doing is is making our community a place where these candidates want to live. We're never going to be able to compete with salaries in the Bay Area counties, and nor should we. But what we can offer here is a quality of life that they can't get anywhere else. We've made significant salary increases, we've changed our benefit packages, and we actually are receiving very high caliber candidates from all over the country who are already hired here and making a difference.
I like to think of hiring locals to fill local jobs. So people that were born and raised here are less likely to leave for better salaries. So I would love to see us reach into the school system and start telling people early what they can do. The sheriff's department, at 18 years old, you can start in the corrections part for them. I'd love to work with the sheriff to be able to get them into these schools and have a conversation as juniors and seniors and say, listen, here's the path that you can come in. You can start here. Here's the salary. Look at what you're doing, and this puts you all the way through. We do that with the sheriff's department. We do that with the fire department. People that were born and raised here are less likely to leave because their families are already here. Also, same in every spot in the county. There's so many vacancies, but people don't know. If we reach into the schools and we tell them, hey, go to Mendocino College your senior year, take this class and this class, and you're ready to be hired as an intake secretary at the Pound or in some other place.
Next question, starting with you, Mr. Boone. Since the West Shore Pool closed in Lakeport, there are very few options for children to learn how to swim in this area. What will you do to help this situation?
Well, I learned to swim in the lake. We've got one. You know what? All these things cost money, and so it's a cost-benefit analysis. Is the cost worth the benefit of it? It's tough. Would it be great to have that pool back? When I was a little kid, I remember running around in the pool in Library Park. There's pictures of me doing that. Would it be great to have that? Yes. Is it cost effective to do that? No, probably not. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. This is the thing. You have to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the best. We probably won't have that coming back. I'm sure we'll hear, suggestions of grants and state funding that will do this stuff. If we can get that, awesome. Let's see if there's some of that stuff out there. We have a parks department right now that's knocking it out of the park, so maybe they can find that kind of funding somewhere. But the sad truth is, swim in the lake, which is not good.
So we are a Channel Cats family. My husband has been the president of the Channel Cats the last couple of years. I understand the value of having a place for kids to learn how to swim. That's a life safety issue. But also competitive swimming. I'm part of the Lake County Recreation JPA that's formed between the county and the cities. And our goal is to bring an aquatics project back to the county. We haven't worked out the kinks. We're actually working on our plan and figuring out what that looks like long term. But that is going to be a joint effort. We already have an investment made. The county set aside several $1 million in our parks reserve plan for that. But these are the kind of amenities that draw people to a community. If you have pools, people want to live there. If you have a competition facility, guess what? You get to host competitions and bring people to the area.
Ms. Pyska, back to you here. What ideas do you have to protect Clear Lake from pollution?
So yesterday we heard a presentation from Water Resources. This was a grant through the Blue Ribbon Committee to do public outreach and education to find out what the community really knows about the pollution going into our lake, and an education program to show people, does the average public know that storm drains enter into the lake? And you'd be surprised. There are a lot of communities across our country that don't make those connections. So it's a lot of outreach and education, but it's a baseline of finding out what people actually know. And then the pollution side of that is, When the lake was very low last year, we did a lot of cleanup. You wouldn't believe the amount of tires that we pulled out, because at one point that was thought would be good fish habitat, but no, it's not. Those tires leach and destroy water quality. So there's a lot of issues proactively.
I think we need to actually find out how much pollution is in our lake. So we have to know the actual numbers and what we're trying to keep out of there. Obviously, we know that everything goes downstream. Doesn't matter what it is. So when you look at the creeks and the creek beds and the amount of debris and stuff that's in those, the overgrowth in our creek beds, we talk about fixing the lake and pollution in the lake, but we need to move upstream. She touched on stormwater. We actually need to move up at the source, start to clean those areas, and make a concerted effort to allow that. One of the problems is anytime you try to do anything in a creek bed, suddenly there's 47 restrictions in your way to be able to actually clean that issue out of there. And so one of those issues is what exactly is polluted in the lake, and what are we trying to keep out of there? We have a shallow lake. You're always going to have algae. It's been there forever, and that's not the pollution that I think we're discussing at this point.
All right, back to you here, Mr. Boone. What can the Board of Supervisors do to help reduce crime, especially fentanyl and opioid abuse?
Support our sheriffs and our local police agencies, the highway patrol, the local different in either city. We absolutely have to make sure that the sheriffs have the resources that they need. And they're struggling. They're struggling to hire and retain, which we talked about earlier. They're struggling to train. Everybody comes here, they spend 2 or 3, 4 years here, and then of course they move out of the area. Long-term cops know the problem spots, they know the problem people, and they know that also the task force, the narcotics task force that used to be around here, Brad was a part of that, and that was a huge portion. We absolutely need to bring the narcotics task force back together and allow them to do their jobs to save lives. Fentanyl kills. It kills 100,000 people a year, I believe I've heard, and we need to make sure that those deaths don't reach into our community and become our kids.
Well, it is in our community, and we have one of the highest rates of overdose in the country, which is why we're receiving so many millions of dollars in opioid settlements. Those funds will be used to, as I mentioned before, develop that plan. But part of it is outreach and education, and I brought together a group of all of our department heads and agencies, including law enforcement, to really start with that messaging and the DA and how we can prosecute. We did have something really successfully funded out of the cannabis revenue, and that was our roadmap task force. We piloted this program in Clear Lake Oaks, and we funded extra law enforcement, extra code enforcement, and we had animal control, and together all of those agencies worked to clean up Clear Lake Oaks for 2 years, and that's where you saw the massive seizures of fentanyl.
All right, next question. How can the Board of Supervisors improve public transportation in Lake County? Ms. Pyska.
So we have our Lake Transit Authority, and there are 2 other supervisors that sit on that. But what we did during COVID that was really, really helpful for our community is we funded people to be able to get to their medical appointments. A lot of these medical appointments are out of county, and people were struggling to be able to have that access to get to their doctor's appointments. So along with the work that the Transit Authority does, and because of the Brown Act, I have a little bit of arm's distance with that because there's 2 other supervisors sitting on that. But getting people the funds to be able to get to their appointments, get where they need to go, get where they need to job interviews, to our Career Point Center in Lakeport, And I think one of the big goals that we have one day is to have a ferry back across our lake.
The transit system in Lake County is a drain on our resources. It's not a cost-effective break-even point. So it's a necessary service. We have to figure out ways to make sure that we fund it. We need to make sure that we are very carefully looking at the numbers, the number of riders, the number of people going back and forth, and how can we streamline that process and make it more efficient so that we can serve those people that need it. The idea of being able to get people to out-of-town medical is super important. And if we can look at that and decide what we could actually give for voucher system to be able to do that is a great way to continue to get people to important appointments that they have to have. But again, we have to go back and look at it as a business. It's always going to be a drain on our resources, I believe, but how can we make it as efficient as possible to get to serve the most people that we possibly can?
Mr. Boone, beginning with you, what are 3 steps you will take when your term starts to fulfill campaign promises?
Well, step 1 is our election is in March. So after that, I can get started learning the ropes. I'll have 10 months before seated in January to be able to figure out what I don't know. My grandpa always used to say, you don't know what you don't know. And that is so true. So one of the things I do is bring in good counselors. In Proverbs tells us that there's safety in a multitude of counselors. So find the right people to surround yourself with that can give you the input that you need. So that's step 1. Get the team together that can give you the input that will help you be able to fulfill those promises. And then step 2 is get to every department. Get in every department. Be available to those people. I said it earlier. Get down with the people that have been in the Water Resources Department for 25 years. Get to the people that have been in those places long term. Talk to them. Look for their solutions and then bring those up to the top. That's where I would start, is at the bottom from the bottom up.
So I have been continuing the work of my campaign promises back in 2020 and 2019. I spent 2 years preparing for this role. I was making relationships and attending every meeting I could. So on that trajectory, I'm continuing to make those relationships at the state level. I've got very close relationships with high ranks in CAL FIRE, and I've been appointed to the California Organization of Counties Agriculture, Land Use, and Environment Committee, Policy Committee, and also the National Association of Counties, EELU, Energy, Environment, and Land Use. And so having those relationships to get the priorities done in our county is absolutely critical. That's how we advocate for our community. So it's continuing the relationships. It's grant funding for all of the projects.
All right, Ms. Pyska, are you humble enough to listen to your voting constituency and vote their majority opinion, even if it's not yours?
I always try to separate my personal view from what's best for the district and for the county. It's really difficult when we have divisive issues. It's hard to know really who is the majority, because some voices are really, really loud, and some voices you're not going to hear. Some people don't show up. We have vulnerable communities who are underrepresented. It's really difficult to make those hard decisions. So yes, it's a lot of sitting down and listening to people, earning their trust, being open, being available. But at the end of the day, you're elected to make the decision, your decision. And yes, it is based on what the residents are telling you, but you have to make sure that you're hearing from everybody and not just one specific group.
Yes. That's it. The answer is yes. I will vote what the majority of my constituents want.
All right, the next question will start with you, Mr. Boone. What do you think the Board of Supervisors should do regarding the hitch populations?
The hitch population they declared as an endangered species, I think they maybe got ahead of themselves, and now we have opened a bag of worms. This year was amazing. Pat Scully sent me a video of his property up there on the top of Adobe Creek. Absolutely beautiful. It was like when I was a kid. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of hitch. So I think maybe we've gotten ahead of ourselves, but let's continue to monitor that. Let's look at it, making sure that the hitch does not impact the agricultural community right now, though, and stop them from being able to use the water that they need. Cleaning riverbeds is going to be a great idea. More information on it is going to be a great idea, but let's not get ahead of ourselves on this one.
We didn't declare them an endangered species. We declared an emergency. And that was, those were long meetings, and we heard from a lot of people, and we got a lot of input. We did ultimately agree to pass that emergency, and with that emergency, we've made some big changes. We have allocated funding out of the general fund for water resources for 2 positions to study fisheries projects. We reappointed the Fish and Wildlife Advisory Committee to work with all the stakeholders and study the hitch populations and what can be done in data collection. We also had the state bring in the Triple Cs, and they have been cleaning out creeks all summer. Adobe Creek, Kelsey Creek, and Coal Creek had massive overgrowth, and those volunteers spent the entire summer hauling out hundreds of tons of debris.
This next question addresses Assembly Bill 240, which provides funds for the care of feral dogs and cats. What will you do as supervisor to assist in the care of these animals? Ms. Pyska, I believe you're first.
This is a hard one. I think shelters across the country are overrun with feral animals. We've got them on the streets. This is really hard for us to handle locally. Our veterinarian passed away. We've been unable to fill that position. We do euthanize at our shelter. Although our director works really hard with outside counties to get those animals placed and with rescue groups as much as possible. There is room for us to grow in this. We've got to work harder. This is a problem. It's a health and safety problem. That's why animal care and control was part of our roadmap task force. But there sometimes are issues outside of our control. This is one that we are committed to getting our arms around, but ultimately, we can't have a no-kill shelter. We've got to reduce these populations, and we get our veterinarian back fully staffed, and we can do our sterilization clinics.
I have to tell you, I did not know this was the problem that it is. Apparently, there are tens of thousands of feral dogs and cats in Lake County. I was blown away by that number. And if that number is accurate, being thousands and thousands of these animals, hiring a veterinarian and making sure that we have more clinics is not going to be the solution to it, because they'll outbreed too fast. They create disease and all other sorts of problems that go along with that. So we definitely need to make it a priority to find a veterinarian for the county. That's a hard issue. If you have any kids, send them towards veterinarian school. It's going to be a great career in the next 20 years. So that's one thing, but we do have to continue with a killing program. Let's just say the word that it is. It's bad. But we have to do that in order to reduce that population. When they get feral and start doing stuff, they start killing quail and the native population stuff.
All right, our next question. What is the most important skill you will bring to the board? And Mr. Boone, I believe we're going with you first.
I'm a self-learner. So 15 years ago, I started watching some stuff on YouTube about CNC-controlled router machines. Thought this was an interesting thing. After a few days of watching those type of things, I decided to build myself a CNC router because at the time they were ridiculously expensive. And by self-teaching, I was able to design, create, and build out an entire CNC routing machine. In O'Meara Brothers, there's some really cool endless knots that are in there. I built all that stuff. Those came off of my machine. I think the number one thing is to be able to learn, because everything is always changing. I'm an avid reader and audio listener all the time. I constantly am listening to self-improvement, to real estate, to business management books, and I believe that that skill of being able to be self-taught will be imperative in this position.
I'm a collaborator and a team builder, and this is what I've done most of my life and most of my career. And that work really started to show publicly after the Valley Fire of 2015, where 2 weeks after I came back to my community, I reached out to everybody I knew, invited them out to a meeting in a field, and said, how are we going to go forward? And you bring the people together, you'll be surprised at how many skill sets are here, how much experience is here. We have a very rich community full of people with wonderful, diverse backgrounds. And a lot of people really want to volunteer and invest in this community. And bringing them together is how we do that. And you bring people together and you listen, you sit back and you let that work happen. You support that work. You don't direct that work. And we've been really, really successful with that in a lot of levels. And that's how I've been able to push a lot of my issues forward.
What do you think is the most important code enforcement priority in Lake County? Ms. Peiska?
According to the complaints I get, this is around cannabis. And, cannabis is new in our economy, in our county, legalized cannabis. There's a difference between illicit grows and legal grows. But code enforcement is active with both of those. So once a cannabis grow goes through the permitting process, then they have all these requirements they have to adhere to. And sometimes that doesn't happen and code enforcement gets involved. If there's a smell complaint, which happened here in Kelseyville with a new project, code enforcement is there. They're involved to make sure that that project can get back on track. Illicit grows, those illegal grows, those are very dangerous. Code enforcement is also involved with that. Code enforcement partners with law enforcement. So really and code enforcement, our officers fluctuate. It's based on the funding that we receive. And so at this time, we have a low amount of code enforcement. At times, we've had much higher code enforcement officers.
So the complaints that I hear going through this process, and one of the things that I see a lot of is that code enforcement should be heavily involved in, is abandoned cars and illegal dumping. We see it all the time. Soda Bay Corridor seems to be the great spot to drop cars, and then you drop a car there, and the next thing you know, you've got criminal activity hanging around it, and it just gets worse from there. And we need to make sure that code enforcement has the tools that they need to be able to get those cars quickly out of those areas so that they don't breed crime and they don't bring in people that do that. Illegal dumping is a terrible thing. I live on Bottle Rock Road. You go over my hill and look over there, the amount of dumping that is happening there is insane. I can go down there and clean it up for the next, 5 weeks, and I still wouldn't be done. There's stuff back there from all the way from the 50s. So continue to find those spots where people are dumping. As fees have increased at the dumps, people illegally dump more.
All right, Mr. Boone, this one goes back to you here. Please give one example of how you solved a complex budget issue.
It's money in, money out. So when you look at a budget, you have to spend less then you take in. You just can't do that. And on a personal level, when I'm looking and evaluating real estate, you're looking at all the factors that come into it and trying to figure out a way to make the numbers work. So a specific example of a complex budget issue, man, when you get into a house and suddenly the dirt work cost you twice as much as it did before because there's huge rocks in there and you have to figure out a way to change the design of it to adapt to that. Those are ways that you look at cost-cutting measures and you adapt and overcome.
One of the biggest things that we did as a board was give historic raises to all of our staff. That was very complicated. It was a long process. It started before I arrived on the board, but it really looked at the need for our salaries. We did a class and comp salary survey and found that all of our salaries were grossly under our surrounding counties. And we know that the people that live here need to make healthy wages to support our economy. And so that going through that process of having reserves to support those salary increases, and the revenues that would the revenue growth that would be required to continue to support those, it was really complex. We did it as a board. We did it with our staff supporting us. It's been really successful. Our other revenues are continuing to rise. Sales tax revenue is really high.
Ms. Pyska, this goes to you first. How do you plan to spend your discretionary budget to better Lake County?
The first thing that I did is I spent $50,000 on equipment for the Hogback Ridge crew, which is the North Shore Chief Ciancio's crew that he was building, and now it's fully built to start doing fuels work projects. And that first year he was fully funded, so I gave him $50,000, Supervisor Simon gave him $100,000, and the county kicked in for even more. Got them off and running. We have lots of fuel projects. They're mostly doing work in the Rivieras, by the way. I gave $10,000 to the Konocti Fire Safe Council to get them started. I have invested, I want to say $30,000 in the trail development at Boggs Forest, because we know that that's an economic driver that brings people every single weekend into the county. I'm up there as an ambassador shaking hands every Saturday and Sunday. And this year I've been using it for grant writing for all of my projects.
I would definitely get involved with the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department and find out how, what one-time expenditures could make their recruiting better and their lives better and more effective. And I think those two areas would be a huge help long-term for keeping fuel dangers down, and that one of those things would probably be grant writing for the Fire Department and the navigation of the ability to do prescribed burns. How much how much that would be, I don't know a number, what they would require to make that happen, but that would be a big part of it. And then local projects in the community, specifically within the school, looking at that and deciding, and I'm not positive if the Board of Supervisors can give to a school, but I would love to see Kelseyville School get some new lights and PA system over here.
The Lake County agricultural industry has an approximate economic impact of $339 million. What will you do to help support such a vital portion of our county's economy? Mr. Boone. Well,
I think I talked quite a bit about that earlier, but agriculture is always the backbone of everything. It's your food, it's a lot of the jobs that happen. So ag needs to be able to get the water that they need. They need to be able to pump their water, they need to be able to store their water, and they need to be able to exercise their riparian rights to be able to use their water that they have. One of the things would be making sure that the permitting process and the for new agricultural is as streamlined as we can possibly make it. Ag companies, places that are looking to put in a new vineyard, they have options. They could do it in Napa, they could do it in Sonoma, they could do it in Lake County. If Lake County is easier and less expensive and more friendly to them, that will promote growth here, which will increase sales tax, increase revenues, increase tourism for wineries, and promote Lake County wines and other. I mean, that's just one instance. There's lots of different industries in Lake County that
Prior to being elected, I went through the Ag Venture program, which is put on by the California Women in Agriculture, and I continue with my membership to this day. Cultivating the relationships with our local farmers and people in the industry is critical. The very first thing that I did when I was elected to the board in 2021 in January was start the Agriculture Advisory Committee with the board. When I spent all that time before I was in office sitting in the meetings, I would watch all the farmers come angrily in because there was an issue and come right before the board, and it wasn't the best way to proactively get in front of things. So with our Ag Advisory Committee, and we're only meant to meet a couple times a year, but now they're reviewing policy, they're reviewing cannabis, they're reviewing requests from the realtors for some of their signing documents. So it's
All right, our next question. What is your stance on the salary and benefit change for the supervisor position? Ms. Peiska, I believe you're first.
Yes. So as I mentioned, we gave those historic raises, but we gave them in two parts. So the class and comp happened in 2019. The board in 2020 gave the first round of raises, and that brought staff up to 80 and 85% of the class and comp, which was still considerably below what the other counties were. Now, I wasn't on the board at that time, but the board decided then to freeze the board's part of that raise because everybody got raises, and the board's salary is 60% set by the grand jury like 20 years ago, 60% of the other electeds. Everybody got their raises, and then, except for the board. And then in 2021, we completed the class and comp salary increases, and we brought everybody up to 99%, and then they have ongoing increases now. Now, we had many conversations with the board at this, and in 2022, we decided to unfreeze that, and so the board got their salaries all at once rather than over the last couple of years.
I think a 40% raise to the board was irresponsible and unnecessary. You look at the last 20 years, people have been doing the job. I think it should be a part-time job so that people stay within their community and stay connected to them. One of the things that I would like to see done is freeze the board's raises and figure out a way to get the public elected officials should have their salary not set by themselves. We need to figure out a way to get that away from them and make sure that everybody else gets paid first. A good leader makes sure that all their team is taken care of before they take care of themselves. And I know talked to somebody the other day, still waiting on part of their raise coming. And the county workers need a good wage to stay here and to be able to do that. A lot of these people are just trying to finish out their time to retire and move on. So I oppose the raise that the Board of Supervisors gave themselves.
So I just have to, I ran out of time, but I want to tell you that we did correct it so that the board salaries are no longer tied to the other electeds. They are set by the state now, so that won't happen again.
All right, next question here. I believe we're starting with you, Mr. Boone. What is your vision for Lake County and Kelseyville in 20 years?
Oh, I envision myself being a grumpy old man on top of my hill, but surrounded by my kids and my grandkids. I love Lake County. I have traveled the world, and Lake County, I believe, has the best weather in anywhere. We have 4 great seasons, and I love that. I think we have a beautiful lake. I think we can do something here that is beautiful and allows for people to have economic growth where they don't have to go anywhere else. We can become the alternative to Sonoma and Napa and Tahoe. I would love to see us as a tourist destination again. I love history, and I love to look back at the pictures of the boat races, my grandparents and these guys out there doing stuff, and the great tournaments, and people on the lake sunbathing and doing that. And I want to see us return to a tourist destination with a great infrastructure of building and manufacturing happening here.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. What is your vision for Lake County and Kelseyville in 20 years?
Okay. So that is why our planning documents that we're working on today are so critical, so that we can have that intentional growth, so that we can keep and maintain our authenticity while having a truly vibrant economy. We're going to have plenty of housing. We're going to have increased industry, and I hope that it is around climate initiatives. With the biomass utilization strategy that I mentioned before, we should have an industry here. We should have lots of small little bioenergy plants around that'll use on an ongoing basis the fuels and make our communities safer. Our communities will be hardened. We will have resilient community resilience centers, so that if and when we have these climate events, which we know we have them multiple times a year, our people will be safe. So that we're building that climate resiliency in as we grow is absolutely critical.
The county has a 10-year plan to repair county roads, but lacks the funds to support that plan. How will you ensure that the 10-year plan is funded? Ms. Peiska, you're up first.
This is a big plan. It took a long time to put together. We do have funding for the first few years. In today's market, it's a $167 million project, which we know is only going to grow over time. We, with all of the proactive planning that we're doing, we are going to be able to pull down some of the historic bipartisan infrastructure money that's been passed by the federal government. Those are going to be options, but this is having shovel-ready plans means that you can go after funding if there are opportunities that pop up. We say, yes, we've already have the plan. Not only that, we have our engineered plans. We pull them off the shelf. We're ready to get that funding. It's not ever happened before. We did not get to this place overnight. This infrastructure was neglected, and now we have the hard work of getting us back on track.
So having sat down and talked with several road department officials and the ex-road department official, Steve Stanglin, and getting some idea of what our road department faces. First of all those guys drive on our roads also. They know. They tell me, yeah, our roads are terrible. I don't like to drive my truck on them myself. It's not as if the road department is sitting on a pile of money and not doing anything. It feels like they've got 2 pennies and they're rubbing them together really fast, hoping they get a nickel out of them. One of the things that I've heard continually is the shortfall is huge for them. And the way that they receive the money to make up the difference is through grants. They have to go beg for their money back from the state. Less than 1% or 1 cent per gallon of the gas tax gets brought back to the county. Then they have to go beg for the rest of it to get it back here. So relieving that duty, I think we have to look at somebody else doing the begging for them, a professional grant writer that allows the road department to focus on the roads and let somebody else get the funding for them, as opposed to putting that on their plate also.
This next question is a little lengthy, but it's a good one, so bear with me here. As supervisor, how are you going to make sure you listen and hear the voices in the community you represent, not just the members of the public who have time to show up and speak for 3 minutes at a board meeting, which may be but what about the working members of the community who cannot attend those meetings during the day?
I think that's an awesome question. That's one of the reasons that I want to be able to continue to work, because I want to be around people that are working. Busy people are busy. They don't have time to show up to that. That would be one of the highest priorities, is going to people at their place of business and in their busy lives and going, what's affecting you right now? The people that show up and have time to really complain about stuff oftentimes are just the loud people. And the quiet people, I've said it already, the quiet people generally have the best knowledge. Busy people are busy for a reason. It's because they have good ideas and they're implementing them. So going out to the people and being in business and continually being around those type people, you will find the information that you need from those people.
We don't have a lot of public participation these days in the board chambers. So it is work to get out and be in the public. A lot of work happens at the grocery store. A lot of work happens at the post office. I am always at the meetings. Any meeting that I see happening, I am there. I'm at the Cabaret Council. I think there are other areas in the county that would also benefit from a municipal advisory council. I'm interacting with the homeowners associations and the fire safe council and the mountain bike team, which my kids are a part of, the Channel Cats. Whenever I go to the pool on the weekends in the summer, guess what? I'm having those conversations. There's no off button to this job. If you're around people, they're talking to you about what they see as an issue. Sometimes they are happy about the work that they see happening, but if you're out in the public and doing your job every day, you're going to hear about it, and that's important.
What's your view on changing the name of Kelseyville? And Ms. Peiska, I believe you're up first.
This is a really complicated issue, and it's something that has been bubbling here for a really long time. And I think there are a lot of strong opinions and a lot of strong opinions, and they're not all the same. And the job of the supervisor is to represent the people, to put aside whatever your personal thoughts are and your personal agenda is, and listen to everybody. And if you make a decision and you take a stance, then that alienates you from other people in the community, your constituents, that may not trust you and want to come and talk to you. And you have to always remember that there are loud voices, but there are also people that are afraid to speak up. And you have to honor them and listen to them. And so the process has already been started. It's a federal process, and I think the board and the supervisor should support it.
Can you read that again, please?
Yeah. What's your view on changing the name of Kelseyville?
So what's my view? Not the politically correct answer. The politically correct answer is listen to the people and see what they tell you. But what's my view? My view is this is ridiculous. The fact that it even gets started is crazy. The cost alone is astronomical. Can you imagine just the fire department having to rebrand themselves to a different name? Every single one of you that lives in Kelseyville would have to go to every single one of your shipping stored carts and change that. You'd have to do all this stuff. Winston Churchill, who's one of my favorite authors, said, "When the present sits in condemnation of the past, there is no hope for the future." We can't fix some wrong from the past by changing our name. When I think of the name of Kelseyville, I don't think of John and Andrew Kelsey. I think of Kelseyville Appliance and Kelseyville Lumber and Borghesani and Schneider's and all these different people that are Kelseyville people today. It's ridiculous, and we need to put it to bed right now. People have better things to do with their time than deal with this issue.
All right, this next question, starting with Mr. Boone. I'm looking for a Board of Supervisor leader with vision. If you are supervisor, what will Lake County or District 5 look like at the end of your term?
I mean, if I had my way, it would be a thriving economic with new businesses banging down the door to come into our county because we've made it so easy for them to start business here. We've rolled out the red carpet. We've eliminated the onerous process of the difficulty that goes along with opening those doors. So that's what I would love to see. Honestly, what probably will happen is hopefully we can slow the creep of government into everybody's life. And we can allow people to be able to live their lives on their own terms and not be so interfered with that you can't do anything. Yeah, that's a tough one. I would just like to see people have personal responsibility for their own problems in District 5.
So what, can you read the question one more
Yeah,
time?
absolutely. I am looking for a Board of Supervisor leader with vision. If you are a supervisor, what will Lake County or District 5 look like at the end of your term?
Okay. So as I mentioned, the three things that guide everything that I do are economic vitality, a high standard of disaster preparedness and prevention, and healthy and safe communities. So that is the work that I do. That's the work that I bring. Vibrant communities that are resilient as we have as we face climate change. People, we've got a new park coming into Cobb. We're doing trail expansion in Boggs. We are working on the things that people value in their communities. Healthy and safe communities look like people have access to outside, open space, safe transportation, bike lanes, and in an area that the community is hardened. We're going through that process right now in the Kelseyville Riviera. We're going to be hardening 500 homes in the next 3 years.
That last question was about what you want to see your district look like by the end of your term. This is going right up to the beginning part. What are the first three things you will do when you take office and why? Ms. Pyska, you're up first. That one already done? The first three?
I think it's pretty similar to.
Okay, yeah, it is very similar to the last question. Okay, the next question then, and we'll go to you, Ms. Pyska. What plans do you have to strengthen the arts in Lake County?
So we have the Rural Arts Initiative. We have, and they are really supportive with our schools and getting art supplies and programs in the schools. That's not something that the county supports directly, but indirectly we do. We did a proclamation earlier this year to call out that amazing work that they do. Art enriches communities. We know that. The Middletown Art Center in Middletown has transformed Middletown and is a center where people come together and celebrate, people from all types of backgrounds. And using some discretionary fund, I have actually given money for a mural to be put up in Kelseyville. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm waiting on that. But art is how people connect, and art is how people have conversations, and this is really how you strengthen and build resilient communities.
You know, the Passion Play has been going here for as long as I can possibly remember it. And what a great community event that happens every year. I know the Lake County Theater Company has knocked it out of the park on a couple of recent performances. Let's not just say recent. For a long time, they've been doing a great job with that. So I think one of the things we can do is from the supervisor's position is to promote and tell people about it. That's one of the best ways is you have a bully pulpit sometime and be a participant, be an encourager, be a clapper, be a advocate for what these places are already doing. Go to the events, go to the plays, clap loudly, lead the cheering section, and tell other people about that. it's a great opportunity to bring the community together when the Lakeport Theater Company does those plays, and I think we should continue to support that.
Next question here to Mr. Boone is, how can the supervisors help strengthen our schools?
Well, the schools are outside of the purview, per se, of the supervisors. One of the things I've done is talked with Dave McQueen, who was our Kelseyville superintendent for quite a while. He's a good friend of mine. And so by being in contact with the right people and finding out what things does the school need from the county, what can we do for you, how can we help you, reaching out to them and finding that. Also, I think being in the school system as an advocate for bringing in the fire department into the school system to recruit, bringing in the county into the school system to recruit, I think that actually makes it better in those things. I think we can also be involved in all the sporting events, all those type of things. We need to make sure that we are supporting those. The Stokes tournament that happens here is a huge thing. As a county, let's make sure we're promoting those things, that everybody knows about them, that the community knows about them, that they come out and support them.
So having close relationships with the superintendents and the school districts is critical. Although we don't have any jurisdiction or authority to, over them, we do work in partnership. And I'm going to give a couple of examples why these strong relationships are so important. During the PSPS events and power shutoffs, Cobb School is isolated. There's a lot of school days that are missed there. And so working with PG&E and my contacts with the government liaison to try and get generators there. And at one point, I got a Tesla backup wall there so that the kids didn't have to miss school during these outages. That's how we work together. We also have this project that's coming this summer that's going to connect the high school and the elementary school with a continuous sidewalk. That was a shovel-ready project, and when Congressman Thompson asked for a community project or an earmark, we had that ready to go.
We had an earlier question regarding the reduction of hazardous fuels. This one more specific, how can you help individual property owners remove hazardous trees?
I've been working on hazardous trees since the fall of 2021, when we looked up and noticed all of our hills were turning red, all of our trees were dying. We declared a tree mortality emergency that spring. That was something I spearheaded. I have a tree mortality task force that meets every month. We have 20,000 standing dead trees along our right-of-way that hopefully we're going to have that state funding here very soon to get to work on that. But we also need help for homeowners because these are $2,000 and $3,000 a piece to remove, and I've written a lot of grants. I've had a lot of grants written to get that work done. It's really difficult, but the Fire Safe Council right now has a new program where they're giving low-income people up to $2,500 to have that fuel work done around their home, and that does include trees. But it is part of grants that we continue to put up there because the assistance needs to be there.
Will you read that one more time for me, please?
Absolutely. How can you help individual property owners remove hazardous trees?
That's a tough one because you have to be careful that you're not singling out people and discriminating against other people. So how do you find the people that are in the greatest need for that? I think the county should take applications for people that need that, and if you're in a spot where it's not just a danger to yourself, but maybe a danger to public right-of-way, say you were somewhere where there's a sidewalk, if there's a danger, maybe look at doing that, and perhaps the county could actually come up with a program where they remove the tree for you and then put the payment process on your property taxes for the next 4 or 5 years so that you don't have to pay it all at once, and that would allow people to get the project done now and pay later, but through the county and through a way that actually works for them. Also, everything now is about grants. I mean, the way the state works is they take all the money and then we have to beg to get it back. And so we have to continue to do that and look for grant money for those people and see how we can help them in that way.
You had an earlier question on the renaming of Kelseyville, but this question is slightly different. Would you support renaming local landmarks as a way to address past mistreatment of Native Americans? Mr. Boone, I think you're up.
Well, Winston Churchill said when you have a point, you need to make a point, hit it hard, and then give it another whack, and then give it one more tremendous whack. So no, you cannot fix the past. Where do we stop? If we start renaming things, where do we stop? Do we stop at Kelsey Creek? Do we stop at Vallejo? Do we stop at Fort Bragg? It just gets out of control. We gave up our name of the Kelseyville Indians because that was going to address all the past wrongs and fix the problem. And now they've come after the name of Kelseyville itself. So we have to draw a line in the sand and say, the past is the past. Let's stop looking that way. We're not going there. We're going forward. And if we continue to look back, we'll never make progress going forward. Also, it's incredibly confusing when you start renaming landmarks just for people. That's a whole nother process. The cost, guys, the cost to do this, we're not advocating for somebody's bad behavior in the past. The cost is too much.
It's renaming landmarks?
Yeah,
is
I
that
could
what you
read
said?
it again. Would you support renaming local landmarks as a way to address past mistreatment of Native Americans?
I think it's something that needs to be looked at individually and by the community. And I think a really good example of this was the monument that called out the Battle of Bloody Island. And everyone knows that wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. And changing those words matters. And this is something that the community can work towards together. It doesn't have to be major. It can be. I don't think that there's a blanket statement that I could make today about that, because each issue needs to be handled individually and really take community input and take in that community input and work together. If there's an issue, I think voices and hands can come together and figure out a way that that works for everybody. But it's got to be on an individual basis.
All right, so after a couple hard ones there, we'll throw an easy one here. What is the most pressing issue facing the county today? That's a nice, easy one, huh? Ms. Pyska.
Climate change. We are in the beginning of a climate crisis. We have wildfires, heat domes, floods, atmospheric rivers, and our communities, we have vulnerable communities. We have people living in substandard housing. We have to figure out how we prepare ourselves for this new reality, because we know that each year these events are going to be more frequent and more intense, and we have some of the most vulnerable populations in this state in high numbers here. We have 26% of our population are seniors, and more seniors every day. So we've got to figure, and this is why I spend so much of my time writing grants that apply to climate resiliency.
One more time, read
Yeah.
it for me.
Yes. What is the most pressing issue facing the county today?
I think retention of county employees, specifically police officers and firefighters, is a major issue that we need to spend a huge portion of our time on. I think people fail to realize the value of a long-term resident as a firefighter or as a first responder. I was just talking to Brian Hansen today, who's one of our CHP. He went to this high school, he grew up here, his family's been here forever. When you get a phone, when there's a call on some back road, a guy like that knows how to get there the fastest way and make that happen. when you have the same issues with a fire going. Seconds or minutes can make the difference. And so keeping our long-term county employees in those areas is such an important thing. It will save lives by making sure that our best and longest-term people don't leave. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to just harp on keeping the long-term employees, because I think people fail to see the benefits, those hidden benefits to them.
Starting with you, Mr. Boone, how would you support the completion of the Middle Creek Restoration Project?
I'm going to plead ignorance on this one. I'm going to have to find the right people and figure out what they need to do, because I don't know. And guess what? If you can't say, I don't know what to do, then you got a problem. So I'm not up to speed on this one. I have to find the right people that can lead me in the right direction and give me the guidance and insight on what would be the appropriate response to that.
The Middle Creek Restoration Project is a decades-old project to return the natural filtration to the lake by restoring the wetlands above the Nice Lucerne cutoff. And the Army Corps of Engineers designed a straight shot of water flow into the lake, which brings far too many nutrients into our lake, and that's why the project is important. It's a long project. We're working through it. We're working through the acquisition to buy back all of those parcels in that area. And then the next step is working with the Army Corps of Engineers and getting the funding to do that work. This is the work of a lifetime, and we have many people in this room that have dedicated their lifetime to that. We have 2 supervisors that are dedicated to that. Supervisors Crandall and Sabatier, who carry that work forward with our Water Resources Department, and the very close work with our Congressman and Assembly member.
All right, this next question's tough for me, given that I still struggle to write the year 2024 on all my dates. But what will be the first thing you do on your first day when you walk in to that next term in January of 2025?
That's a hard one for me because I've got so many projects up in the air. But I will start with the tree mortality issue and continuing that work. We've applied for many grants to make sure that we can clear all of the trees out of our right-of-way, because as we know, during storms and potentially during fires, we could have all those trees falling in our roads. This is a public safety issue. Those trees are already standing dead. Climate change and excessive heat and drought is exacerbating that problem. And so I will never give up on getting those trees removed. It's absolutely critical. It's only a matter of time before something catastrophic happens. It increases our chance of wildfire. We know it's going to happen eventually, so we've got to protect all of our infrastructure and make sure that we have safe evacuation routes.
That is a really tough thing to project that far out because who knows the change in direction that may or may not happen between now and then. What I would like to be able to do on the first day is to be able to go in and approve more funding for more firefighters and more first responders, cops, sheriff's department in that. That would be the dream, is that through that time we've been able to look for the funding for those so that those 2 offices specifically can be fully staffed and that those people can stay here long term. What 2025 will look like on day 1, I really don't know, and to project that far out is just a pipe dream at this point. So all I can say is what I would like to do for that.
Will you be able to hold community forums periodically? I think this goes to you first, Mr. Boone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ultimate job of the supervisor, is a go-between. We talked about it earlier. People are busy. People generally don't want to come out to different things. So I think our job is to go to them and to go to anywhere where there's groups of people and listen. Always listen, listen, listen. So I'm open. Call me. That's the job, is to be the go-between for the busy people that can't make it to meetings and do that. So yes, I would be very honored to host and go to any community meetings where people want to talk about the issues that are facing them, whether that's the name change or cost of building, or, you know, I mean, there's so many different things that come up all the time. A specific individual problem, that's our job, is to take that specific individual problem, a land use change of permits, those type of things. One of the big ones is cannabis. People want to talk about that and get your input on it.
So we do already have opportunities, forums that happen routinely. I'm at the Cabaret Council every single month. There is possibly going to be something, a municipal advisory council in Kelseyville. I think that's a great idea. Advisory councils are appointed by the Board of Supervisors to act as a town hall so that people can come together and give the direction that they want their community to have. And if they need support from the board or the supervisors, we're there to support. So I sit down with the Cabaret Council regularly, listen to what they're going through, and what their plans are, and see where I can advocate at the board level or above at the state and federal level. So those forums are critical to carrying forward the needs of the community through implementation.
All right, Ms. Peiska, this next question starts with you. How do you assist a member of the public to aid in helping them figure out what agency is responsible for fixing a particular road?
A particular road, okay. So I think that this job is a 24/7 concierge service. My phone rings all the time. It's on the county website. And a lot of times they come with an issue and they need to know how to solve it. As a supervisor, I can't tell them, this is how I'm going to solve it for you. I could rarely say that because it's got to go through staff, and I can't make those decisions for staff. So if it is a road issue, I would like to point them to our website where there's a specific place to report a pothole or a road issue, because if you do it that way, rather than me emailing the director who will send it to staff, that'll get lost. If you go through the website, then it's in our system, and staff can monitor it and check the box when it's completed.
So for a specific road, one thing that I love is on Facebook, the road department has a great presence there. People report potholes all the time to them, and I think they actually do a pretty decent job. But I think if somebody were to call and say, hey, there's a specific problem here, my job is to go look at that specific road and go, where does this rate on all the roads? Is this the worst road there is? Is this need to get moved to the top? Where are we? So how do you do that? You check the road yourself. You talk to the road department head and say, hey, where is this road on your schedule? If he says, we don't have it on our radar at all, then you ask, can you take a look at it and see if it's a safety hazard that needs to be taken care of right away? Or if you find out, hey, that's on our list of things to take care of in the next week, 2 weeks, 2 months, tell the person that has specifically contacted you about that, give them the information.
All right, folks, we've arrived at our final question. And before I ask this, I just want you to remember, I'm just the guy reading these things, so don't hate me. But as our final question tonight, you can each ask a question of your own to your fellow candidate. So I don't know if we want to take a couple seconds there. But Mr. Boone, I believe you are up first.
Let me ask you this then. If it was completely your decision whether or not to change the name of Kelseyville, what would your decision on that be?
Well, it's not. That's a hypothetical question because this is a federal process. And I don't want to live in the hypothetical. This process has begun with the application that has been submitted. It's gone to the Board of Geographic Names, which is a federal committee. It has been brought to the California committee. They will be sending staff out here this summer to collect all public input. I encourage everyone to participate. Give your input. That is really important. Your voices need to be heard. And the board will likely be asked, and I feel very strongly the board should stay neutral too, because this decision needs to come out of the arguments of the people, and the people that are here feel very strongly. However this happens, there's going to be a losing side of this, and the supervisor and the board still needs to represent the people.
Ms. Pyska, your opportunity to ask a question of Mr. Boone.
So it's true in the past that supervisors worked part-time or it was a retirement job, but because of the workload right now that we have, and all supervisors working full-time with no other jobs or other conflicts that could come in, how do you feel like you could carry this work forward and really do the best for Lake County only working part-time?
That's a great question. So I've been self-employed my entire life. I work 60 hours a week all the time. So if I take off 40 hours a week and give that to the supervisors, that leaves me 20 hours a week to continue my part-time job. Seems like I've got it all. Still, I only have 6 kids, leaves me plenty of time. I'm in my spare time, right? That's where we're at. I think it's imperative that we are out and about and in the community. So that's it. I've always worked that kind of workload. I'm used to it, and that'll just continue on. But that doesn't scare me to do that.
Well, that concludes our question and response period here, so we'll move on to our closing statements. As stated before, each candidate here this evening will have 2 minutes to provide your closing statement, and I believe, Ms. Pyska, you get to go first.
So thank you tonight for hanging in here. This has been a long 2 hours, and you've been very enthusiastic. I appreciate everyone that's been here tonight. It really has been a privilege to serve the residents of District 5 and Lake County for the past 3 years. I spent 2 years preparing for this job, and even with all of that work, there was a very steep learning curve to get to where I am today. And the last 3 years have been about strategically laying the foundation for the growth that is coming to Lake County. We have once-in-a-lifetime funding, one-time funding that's coming into our county, and it is up to us to make sure that we have all of our plans in place like we're doing, like I've mentioned, so that we can pull down that funding and make those changes for Lake County that we've all been wanting to see for a long, long time. This is broadband, housing, economic development, all of these things that are important to all of our community members and our families. Growing into this job means extending outside of Lake County. And you can ask our state and federal representatives. I have been absolutely relentless on our asks to bring things to Lake County, and they've been listening. What we're doing here now is noticed on the national and state level. My colleagues have been selected to sit on committees to represent the voices of rural counties. I have been appointed to both committees at the State and National Association of Counties. Lake County is at the table, and our voices are being heard. This has been a very exciting time. I'm very excited. I'm very proud to be a part of these big, big changes that are coming. I want to continue this work, and I'd be very honored to earn your vote in March.
Mr. Boone, your closing statement?
I'd like to say thank you to the Chamber for putting this on. Thank you guys for hanging out here. This is definitely a long 2 hours. And a lot of questions. I mean, I think you've heard us speak enough. You understand where we stand on a lot of the issues. And I think it's a choice of a change of direction for our county. I think I have the best interest of our county at heart. I've been a lifelong resident, a generational lifelong resident. I'm invested in this community. With 6 kids and the desire to see Lake County survive and thrive over the next 20 to 40 years, I'm not looking at just the next 5 years. I want to see that happen so that my kids and grandkids can stay here and do that. I think we need to continue to work on our fire preparedness. One of the things that I'll do is I'll bring that common sense approach to all issues that need to happen. The baseline comes down to you have to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. We want to keep local jobs local. We don't want to outsource jobs to people from Daly City and other places. We want to make sure that our local people have our local jobs. We want to make sure that we do that as much as we possibly can. We need to make sure that our fire departments have our support, that they have our funding, and that they have all of the help we can give them. Same with law enforcement. We need to look at new and innovative solutions to allow for new people to come here. We have a beautiful climate and weather here. We have that going for us that other places don't, so I think we can continue to do that. Lastly, I think it's time for a change. And I think the choices between us are here. As your supervisor, I'll definitely fight for the name of Kelseyville because it appears that that's what you want. I know there's already signatures of 600 plus people that have done that. I appreciate your time, and I'm asking for your vote in March election. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's give both of our candidates one more good final round of applause. We've hit them with quite the gauntlet of issues this evening. Thank you, Lake County Chamber of Commerce, for putting this together, and Record B for your co-sponsorship of this great event. And thank you, audience, for your wonderful questions. Much obliged to Kelseyville High School here this evening for letting us use the Student Center. PEG TV, thank you for putting this together, and look forward to seeing it up online. Most importantly, just remember to get out there and vote on March 8th. And, your vote still matters at the local level. Tell your friends, get them out there on March 8th. Thank you for coming out this evening, and travel home safely.